I always track my sleep with Whoop. So I'm lucky enough that I'm a person that I could fall asleep anywhere, anytime. Never really have had any issues with sleep. What I did notice from using Whoop is that before I probably slept too much, just kind of sleeping for the sake of sleeping. Whereas now I have a good kind of regime going on, like getting optimal sleep and getting the sleep that I need to recover properly.
Unfortunately, I'm a terrible sleeper. Like, since using Whoop, I have gone a bit better, but yeah, before, I think it's just that I thought I was getting the sleep because you'd be in bed for, I don't know, 8 hours or so, but then when you look back on the data from the night, you actually realize that you might have been awake for 2.5 hours during the night or something like that, which I didn't really notice before. So that was good to kind of realize that. So I've had to like pay attention to getting into bed early enough so that I'm asleep for enough of the night. I have a terrible sleep latency as well. Like, it takes me so long to fall asleep most of the time. So it's been, Whoop's been really helpful for that. I guess when we went to Tokyo, obviously the jet lag was something we had to kind of take into account. So on our training camp beforehand, we were doing some crazy stuff, like we were getting up at like 4 o'clock just to try and offset some of it, because I think it was a 9-hour gap maybe. So by getting up at 4, we kind of offset it to maybe 6 hours or something. So the first few days were tough enough. We were kind of trying to stay awake during the day so that we could go to bed at normal time, and it actually worked well enough. Like, we weren't too bad. The recovery on the first few days wasn't great, obviously, but I think that was just from the long travel more than anything.
Sleep like a baby in camp. I don't have a missus or a dog in the bedroom. Our dog now sleeps in our bedroom, so sleep is definitely affected by that in the last 2 years since we got a puppy. So I'm like massive on sleep. I think that's the first thing I look at, obviously in the mornings, but it's out of the Whoop data. Sleep would be the one I kind of obsess over. So at home, I've gotten in there, like, since we got back pre-season this summer, I've gotten in a really good routine. I've been upstairs by, like, I'm a night owl naturally, but upstairs by 9:30, and then hopefully be asleep by 10:30 and get I need like 8.5 hours. Since the data has been collected, like, I need about 8.5 hours. So at home, it took a bit of convincing, but we've gotten everyone upstairs around 9:30 and switching off. And reading. I found reading. I'm not a big reader, but I found it since I've been in camp. You can do so much here. Like, you've got like your lavender diffuser and stuff in the hotel room, and it's real cozy. But one of Keith Earls has his book, and I've been stuck into that over the last few nights, and that's made it actually. I've seen it like in REM sleep and deep sleep. It's actually made a massive difference, because usually I kind of fool myself. I'm like, I'm in bed by 9:30, but you're on your phone or you're watching TV, and then like your deep and REM are they're okay, but like since I've been talking into his book, I've been like 2 or 3 hours REM and about nearly 2 hours of deep as well, which is crazy for me. So that's my latest revelation.
Like, when we obviously go into with national team, we're in the hotel, and you've got, like, I needed like a candle, and kind of spoke about lavender. You've got lavender spray and stuff. I do feel like that helps a lot. So even if it's just mentally, once I know I've done it, I can obviously then start to switch off. Putting my phone away is probably the biggest one. Speaking of books, Sean O'Brien sent me his book there a few weeks ago, and that puts me asleep as well. So
yeah, rugby books are just terrible. They're good for sleep.
I think it was something that wouldn't have been that important to me. I would have actually been similar to Fintan in terms of, I would have said, I was in bed for 8 hours. Yeah, that covers me. But since I started using the Whoop, I think it's very helpful in terms of just quantifying it. At times where there's going to be times where you've got to be somewhere earlier in the morning, and that's going to happen. But I think the Whoop is great in terms of you can see that, and then you can say, right, I need 2 hours here, so I can take 2 hours maybe in the middle of the day. again, if time will allow that. But it's something that, again, I have probably started to improve on, just because it's the data is there in front of your eyes when you wake up in the morning. It makes it easy on you, and it's very hard and not to try and focus on it and try and improve it.
The web journal is so important for sleep and finding what works. And there's probably things I've done in the past and realised, that doesn't actually help. But keeping that sleep routine consistent, regardless of your home or away, we wouldn't have to do as much travelling as Lena, thankfully. But it's trying to keep that consistent if we are staying away. You do have so much nerves night before a game, and sometimes you are thinking about the game, and I suppose the trick for me is trying not to think. The conundrum then is you start thinking about not thinking. So the sooner you get the brain to switch off, then the better. Again, the more time I can spend in bed on game day, even if it's just lying, chilling, that helps me. So even if I could get a nap in, again, then I would go for that as well, because sleep is huge. It's just so important.
The nap thing is like so key, I think, especially if you've when we're away, we might have a meeting in the morning, training in the evening, and like if you went up to kind of our apartments, where like all our team is, like everyone will just be asleep kind of in the middle of the day. Like it's such a big thing, napping, and I've kind of had to learn how to do it, but it's been a really, really helpful, and like just helps reset in the day.
The biggest things about sleep itself. So sleep naturally is monophasic. Normally we sleep once in the 24 hours. And ideally that's at nighttime, because that fits with us as humans. Our hormonal changes are based on patterns of sunlight and daylight. And we normally sleep at nighttime. And we also, by human nature, like routine. So the things, I suppose, to really consider if you were trying to give somebody basics around sleep is to have a really good, consistent routine. Think about room conditions, social media use or video game use before sleep, caffeine consumption and timing of that. And Conor certainly talked about after 2 o'clock not being useful. Competition stress, training and competition times. A lot of the GA teams train late at night. It's really hard to then go home and eat and then have your 2-hour window before you go to sleep. Intensity of training, work or school stress, and we know stress is a huge factor on sleep quality. And things like scheduling, teams that travel abroad, jet lag, and I suppose not to rule out other life stresses like relationship stresses or other things that might be going on in the human's head.
Very, very important. That's when your body, both your brain and your body, gets that recuperation. That's the recovery process. So if you have the hard training session that night at 7 o'clock, probably at 3 o'clock in the morning when you're sleeping, that's when all the metabolic machinery is switched on, all the genes in the nucleus of your cell are switched on, and you're making all these new proteins, you're making neural connections. Your brain, that's when the brain gets its time to sit back and relax and take in all the thoughts of the day. I did not really appreciate sleep until quite recently. I read a book on sleep, and I've read a lot of papers since. It is very, very, I believe, underappreciated in sport, in both individual and team sports. And I think if you really want to compete at the elite level, you have to be getting a minimum of 8 hours sleep a night because of its ability to regenerate the body.